Introducing the all-new Western Enforcer V-Plow. Engineered with all the features, efficiency, and performance of full-size Western V-Plows, built specifically for your half-ton truck. For more information, visit westernplows.com.
Mike Bott from Frost Solutions, one of the owners of the company. What we do is provide a mini weather station to give you a tailored forecast to those particular locations so you know where and when and what to do in those parts of town. You know there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that people can experience tremendous value having a technology like this.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey with your host, Dave Westcott. The Entrepreneurial Journey is a weekly podcast that streams live every Tuesday at 9:15 a.m. Pacific on Dave's YouTube channel and LinkedIn profile. Now here's Dave with this week's episode.
All right, good morning and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey. I'm your host, Dave Westcott. I've got with me co-host Todd Chapman. I took a Latin lesson this morning. I've got Philip Bredsguard, president of Æstus and Liber Forum. Philip established his first organization when he was just 13 years old. Philip has been personally mentored by Cameron Taylor, Chris Brady, and Orrin Woodward, who have been consistently ranked on Inc. magazine's top 50 most influential leadership and management experts. People began asking for his guidance in leading their organizations when he was 17 years old. Since then, hundreds of entrepreneurs and other leaders have met with him one-on-one, asking for his counsel, leading him to become an internationally recognized business development expert. He is currently president of Liber Forum Æstus. Did I crush that?
You got pretty close. You got better than most people, that's for sure.
Dang it!
You nailed it the second time. Yeah, you
Where was I off the first time?
I think it was Æstus the first time.
Did I do Æstus?
But you nailed it the second time. You drilled it the second time.
You did much better than most.
It was money.
Okay, the first was supposed to be Æstus. Æstus. That's what my eyes saw. That's not what came out of my mouth. Okay, that's
You hit it the second time. Perfect.
So I took a Latin lesson this morning, and I'm so excited to have you on the show. But I got to tell this story really fast. So I've got to. I'm president of the Snow and Ice Management Association. If you saw the nice intro for Western Snowplows and Frost, we're a big snow company, and so as president of the association, one of the things that happens is at the annual symposium, which is Pittsburgh, I don't know, there's going to be a couple thousand people in this room during the awards ceremony. And over the last years, what I recognized, because I've known I was going to be incoming president for, like a few years here. So I've been watching what the president duties are to mentally prepare myself so that I can achieve better and higher results than any other president who's ever been a part of SIMA, because I like to think that I'm the best. And so one of the things that happens is they have this award ceremony, and there's probably 50 awards that go out. And so one of the things that happens is they get up there and you have to literally pronounce like 50 people's names who are winning awards. And I see the board presidents up there just absolutely struggling with pronouncing all of the names. I mean, it just gets so butchered. The names of companies gets butchered. So literally, I dream about this. I dread getting up there on that stage and having to read people's names. And so when you throw 3 big words at me, and I'm going to say big words,
this is good prep.
That are Latin, I gotta really be prepared to drive these home. And I'm always impressed by the people who just nail it right off the top. Those people always impress me. But anyways, I just had to tell you that story as we get going. So great to have you on the show. Your consultancy seems like it's just an amazing experience for the entrepreneur. Gosh, man, 17 years old, they're asking for your advice. 13 years old, you're an entrepreneur. What drives you, man? I got to know, what drives this incredible success?
So I was telling Todd a little bit about it this morning, but my family was not entrepreneurs at all. So my older brother, he's 15 years older than me, and around the time I was about 13, he was just out there crushing it in the kind of the entrepreneurial world. He went into the motor oil industry. He was a chemical engineer, and he started this motor oil company, and he created the first biodegradable motor oil. And not only is it biodegradable, but it is the most efficient and most long. Usually, I think you can go about 15 to 20,000 miles with one oil change with his motor oil. And so it's good for the environment, and it's also good for the actual engine of the car and stuff like that. So he was out there just rocking, and he ended up selling and everything like that. So me being a young kid, I was looking to my older brother saying, this is how you be a man. This is what you do to provide for your family. And so I said, I want to start a business. And I just, another one of my brothers was big into woodworking and things like that. And I was a 12-year-old kid, grew up in Southern California. And so I love longboarding. I love skateboarding. So I was like, all right, I'm going to make a longboard skateboard company. And so I just started buying pieces of wood and carving them up and painting them in my garage and started selling them with some of my friends. And it just kind of grew from there. But a lot of it really kind of came from, I also really love to study history. And a big aspect I notice in history whenever I like to read, and I even picked this up as a little kid, was that anytime there was this big positive cultural shift in society, it always came from a small group of successful entrepreneurs. Whether it's the Renaissance, you can go through anything, the civil rights movement, Western civilization itself, you can go all the way back to antiquity. It's always that case. And so when I was a young kid, that was really the big drive that drove me to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be one of these successful entrepreneurs that could be a part of making some bigger difference in the world, to really make this world better, more advanced, more efficient, to make life better for other people.
I love that. You know, this your comment spurred like 15 comments for me. So when I'm thinking of motor oil, I'm immediately started thinking about the movie Tommy Boy. Okay. Yeah. So, you know, out there on the road selling Callahan brake pads, he's selling this incredible motor oil. You're the kid watching him come up. I'm just imagining the crash scene, burns the cars. You know, for anybody who's seen Tommy Boy, I hope that didn't date me too much. But then also you shared a little bit about history, and in getting to know you, like, you are very historical. And so I've been wanting to ask you this question, and I think now's an appropriate time. Teddy Roosevelt, you're familiar with him?
Yeah.
He gives this speech, and he talks about the man in the arena. And I'm setting you up for this because you didn't know this was coming. Are you familiar with the man in the arena?
I am not as much as I would like to.
Okay.
I'll put it that way. I've heard of the speech. I haven't studied it too much.
So I love the speech, and because it talks about the entrepreneur, you know, and it talks about, you know, what it goes through to be an entrepreneur. And I don't have it memorized either. So, you know, like, I'm not incredible at it, but, you know, basically what it says is, hey, the man in the arena is the entrepreneur that's going for it. And kind of what you shared was, hey, listen, you know, all of these things through time have been really spurned by the entrepreneur. And so what I'm saying here is that what he's saying is it's the man in the arena who gets the job done. His face is marred with blood. He tries valiantly over and over again, but yet he comes up short, but yet he fails. And the critic is the cold, timid soul who knows neither victory nor defeat. But the true medal of honor, or the true accolades, belong to the man in the arena. And the entrepreneur is the man in the arena. The entrepreneur is the man whose face is marred with blood, and he, you know, comes up against defeat on a daily basis. And what I love about what you've built with autonomous organizations is that propels and helps and in my mind drives the man in the arena. And that inspires me, because we live in an age where everybody is on Yelp leaving a review, right? And sometimes it's like, what are they talking? Like, it's just crazy, right? Like, but all of those cold, timid souls. Like, I believe anybody who's a reviewer, like, you're a cold, timid soul. I'm just going to go and say it. Like, so at the end of the day, the entrepreneur whose face is marred with blood and sweat and tears and fails and tries and fails and tries and fails and tries, all he had to do was read your book.
That's very kind of you to say that.
I'm leaving it right there. I'm letting you take the stage, man. I set the stage. I feel like I did it as well as, you know,
You did fantastic.
any professional.
Can you do that in Latin?
Hey, you know, report him to HR. We need to. This is his last day.
No, it's awesome.
Well, I do appreciate you saying all those things about me, Dave, and especially about the book itself, because I mean, the reason I put this book together was exactly what you're talking about. I begin the book this way, and I started with a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. There's lots of things I really, really love about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. There's also things I don't like, just like anybody. If you ever have somebody you study in history and you agree with everything they say, again, outside of, I'm a Christian, so outside of Jesus Christ, in my opinion, then you're not studying enough about the individual. There's always something you should disagree with because there's flaws in everybody. But particularly Dr. Martin Luther King, he had a speech that he gave at a junior high school. This is a junior high school setting. These kids are 13, 14 years old. And he gave it about 6 months before he was assassinated. And he said, no matter how young you are, you have the responsibility in which to make your nation a better nation in which to live. And you have the responsibility in which to make life better for everybody. And so you must be involved in the struggle for freedom and justice. And I didn't hear that speech until I was about 18 years old, but as soon as I heard that, I said, that's exactly the way I felt my whole life. And up until that point, because I love history and things like that, and particularly in the United States, and this is true of Western civilization and the world as a whole. But again, it all comes back to when you have a group of successful, powerful entrepreneurs, the higher the population density of these entrepreneurs, the freer the society is. And particularly the United States is the clearest, most just boldest example of this in the history of the United States, because you have in the history of the United States from colonial times until about 2000, there's a big difference. So the records they had with the earliest ones about 1900, but the average American population of entrepreneurs was about 90 to 95% small business owners.
Wow.
That means 9 out of 10 people you met on the street, as far as householders, like the heads of the household, owned their own small business, typically a small farm or something like that. But they were independent enough to control and determine their own financial standing. And that was the foundation which America was started on. By 2000, you have this kind of post-industrial revolution in the United States and across the world as a whole. It's not just the United States, it's across Europe, across Asia as well. But you have this change from the vast majority being entrepreneurs to the vast majority being employees or hired laborers. So in about 2000, you have the year 2000, you have about 10% of the American population now claiming that their primary income is coming from self-employment, where they are developing their own income. And again, there's nothing typically wrong with that. Any man in particular that is willing to go out there and provide for his family in an honest way deserves respect and admiration, in my opinion. But the problem with that is when you have that small group of these entrepreneurs who have this high influence over society, the power to influence society condenses into this small group. And so the ability for the mass to be able to stand up and say, this isn't okay, I don't like what you're doing, or you're being incorrect about how you're proceeding, it goes away. And it has a lot, the sacrifice people have to go through to reinstate their freedom and their liberty and their natural rights as children and of God, in my opinion, is extremely high when that happens. But when the majority is entrepreneurs, the sacrifice to maintain that liberty is much lower, where people can quite literally say, no, you don't get my food. Like in the American Revolution, you have Britain coming to the United States, and they say, we're going to come and we're going to eat all your food. All the military is going to come here and we're going to starve you out and you're going to submit to us. And what the American, the founding generation did is they literally got up and burned all their farms. These people got up and they made the sacrifice to burn their farms. And because it was their own farm, they weren't hurting anybody else. They brought the food for themselves and everything like that. But they had this power to have this minimal sacrifice. It sounds like a big sacrifice, but in the grand scheme of things, when that power isn't there and you don't have this farm to burn and you're submitting yourself to some boss or some CEO or anything like that, again, it's not necessarily wrong. but it distributes the power unequally. And so the amount of sacrifice you have to go to say no, to actually have the same amount of effect is much greater. It comes to I hate to say it, but to more of a bloody end, if you will.
Yeah.
And you see that in France and other places where, like, the French Revolution wasn't as high entrepreneur rate, and so you have this greater sacrifice to have this liberty, as they said.
So, I don't mean to cut you off. I got one question that just popped into mind. This is a burning question. I gotta ask this question. So, what you've said is, hey, let me just kind of paraphrase it. We've in our founding generations, we had a lot of entrepreneurs, 90 to 95%, and then after this post-industrial revolution, we've got a lot more laborers, and we got a lot more people in the labor force. With the introduction of social media, do you see that we are seeing a lot more entrepreneurship in the way of social media platforms? Like you hear these stories of 11-year-olds owning their own social media channel, making millions of dollars. You hear of so many people that are becoming their own boss. They're becoming independently wealthy by monopolizing social media. You hear of all of the influencers. So it seems to me that thousands to tens of thousands of entrepreneurial opportunities have opened themselves up because of the freedom of the internet. Do you see that as an expansion of the entrepreneurial journey? Do you see that as a good thing or a bad thing? Have you considered how this plays into that spectrum at all?
Yeah, so to answer your question is a bit twofold in my opinion. So the answer is yes and no. So particularly the yes thing is that the internet, like for myself, I was a 13-year-old kid. I started an internet-based skateboard business. A huge opportunity. It allows you access to the market. And so the answer to that is absolutely yes. It gives you this broad spectrum to where you can be innovative, you can put yourself out there, and you can have a broader scope. Like Adam Smith talked about, the wealthier the nation, the bigger the market. And Elon Musk talks about that repeatedly, and that's why he's so into one reason he's so into increasing the population and having birth rates raised, because as birth rates in the market shrinks, so does the economy and the prosperity of all. And so one aspect of it is an absolute yes. The reason I say there's a caveat is because, in my opinion, so just to take the social media aspect and the influencers, you're still submitting yourself to somebody. And so again, there's a political time and things like that. So certain platforms will only allow you to say certain things to monetize. And but if we take, again, I'm not necessarily picking a side here when I say all this stuff, but let's just say Elon Musk with X, he's promoting more of a free speech rate. He's going to say, you're allowed to say anything you want on my platform. But even that, you're still submitting to Elon Musk. If Elon Musk ever dies, someone takes over the company, that could be taken away. If that is really the case, and which it appears to be. So when I see social media influencers, they are creating the entrepreneurial habits where they're putting in the hard work, they're being self-reliant, but it's more in the sense of a 1099 rather than an actual self-employment.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so they're creating the right behaviors, but I would not consider them a true self-employed entrepreneur. And I would consider them a true self-employed entrepreneur in the same sense I would consider an independent insurance salesman an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. And my history is in the franchise world. A lot of my professional career. Would you put the way I'm hearing it too, like franchising? Would you kind of classify that, not the franchisor, but the franchisees in the same way, and classify that along that same lines? Or what's your experience with franchising?
A little bit of the same sense. A lot of it has to do with how the structure of the franchise is actually created. For the general sense, I would say yes. But that does, again, it's not, I don't want to discourage the behavior, because I would rather somebody be a franchise owner than to be some general manager of McDonald's, because you're increasing your influence, you're increasing your ability and the habits and the personal development to have this entrepreneur within you to create something. Are you following a system that works previously? Yes, and that's okay. If you need to do that to get started, by all means, go and do that, because these franchises have some fantastic foundations to teach you how to be a business owner. Is it the end all be all? I would prefer people move on further than that. But it is a great foundation. To me, if you're going to be a business owner and you want to, I would highly recommend somebody becomes a franchise owner rather than go to get an MBA.
What would you say are the first steps to make your company autonomous?
So in order to really answer that question, you have to really understand what an autonomous organization is. So a lot of people don't really know that word. They don't hear it too often. As you can tell so far in this podcast, I use lots of words people don't know. That does not mean I'm smart. It means I found them in a dictionary one time and I just started using it. I'm not a vocabulary expert. But the word autonomous it's another form of the word autonomy, which just means self-reliant at the end of the day. And so when you ask what are the first steps to have an autonomous organization, you have to look at what an organization really is. So if you want an organization that's self-reliant, that can rely on itself, you have to understand what an organization truly is. And one of my mentors always would look at me and when he would teach me how to run my businesses and stuff like that, he would say, look at your business as if it was your own son. If you want to be the parent that has to tell a son to do what to do all the time and always micromanage them, controlling them, stuff like that, then you're going to be a miserable parent and your son's going to be a miserable son. The truly successful parents in life, they look at their children and they say, I'm here to help you do it yourself. And that's what he said, that you have to separate yourself from your business. If you want your business to not be reliant and dependent on you as the owner, you need to treat it as if it's its own entity, that it makes its own decisions. It has its own passions, if you will. And the reason you can think of your business as a separate living entity is because that's what it is. If you take an organization for what it really is, all it is at the end of the day is it's a group of people, nothing more, nothing less. It's a handful of people have got together for some reason, period. You can take away what a business does. You can say you're not allowed to do this anymore. They'll just go find this group of people. If they're coming together for that reason, they're going to go find something else to do. Like I can speak. I'm not here to put words in your mouth, but I'm sure if the government came to tomorrow and said you guys aren't allowed to do snow stuff anymore, you guys would be like, all right, well, screw that. We'll show you. We'll make something of ourselves in some other market, and we'll prove to you that we can do this no matter what. You know, if you guys are inspired to come together, so it has nothing to do with what you're doing, what products you're selling, what services you're supplying. It's just at the end of the day, it's a group of people. So if you want your business to be autonomous, to be self-reliant, you have to, again, perceive it for what it really is. It's a group of people. And what a group of people is they're a bunch of humans, right? They have human nature. They make mistakes. They're flawed. They learn, they grow, they change, they develop from one thing to another. And so to the first steps to make your business autonomous, if I could just recommend one thing, is to begin to stop treating your business like it's a machine. When I started my first businesses, that was my biggest problem. Is I said, here's a business, I'm starting this thing, it's going to make me tons of money, I'm going to travel the world, I'm going to be debt free, I'm going to have this sweet thing, I'm going to have a hot wife, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be this successful entrepreneur, right? And that was the thing that stopped me, because I would hire somebody in particular, so it's all about people. I'd hire somebody. I'd say, all right, you need to do this job. This is how you're going to do it. This is when you're going to do it. And I'd kind of watch them. I'd say, oh, no, you're not doing it right. And I'd kind of train them. I'd try and coach them. I'd be like, no, you got to do it this way. And what I found was the more I tried to control my business as if it was some automobile I had just bought and I wanted to fix up, I can't just take a new oil filter and throw on another one with this business. There is some give and take when it comes to having some systems in place for your business. But at the end of the day, each individual is not a cog in the wheel. They're quite literally a living thing. They learn, they develop, they have passions, they have creativity, they can think for themselves. A gear cannot think for itself. A person can. And so if a business is to be its own living thing, its own living entity, you have to allow it to make its own decisions. And how you do that is that you allow the people within the organization to make its own decisions. There's a lot to this. My book kind of goes through the whole process of how to actually structure the business to do it. And nothing is new, nothing's revolutionary in the book itself, but it'll put together a process on how to do that. So again, the first step I would recommend is understand that people change. They think for themselves, and that's kind of the biggest process for me. That this sounds like such a simple thing to do, but if you can really start to realize and trust people, and again to just start to look at them for being people, not pinions in a piston or whatever things like that.
Sure.
You think of you're here for this purpose. Think of them as a developing thing, and again, treat your business more like a child or a garden, if you will, rather than an automobile. Sorry, that's really simplistic. A lot of people are going to hear this and they're going to be like, that you sound like some hippie freak, or whatever, stuff like that. You're gonna. The thing.
No. I get smarter.
These principles. The thing with these principles is truth is very simple. Truth is plain. Truth likes to escort it in its own fruition. And with a lot of people, they want some big dramatic effect. They said, I want to apply this business thing. I'm going to do it this way. I read this in a book. This is my one nugget. And trust me, I'm all about getting a nugget from the book. But at the end of the day, the truth is usually the simplest answer. It's not the easiest to apply, but it's often so easy to skim over and you'd be like, oh, that's so easy. But if we're not introspective on ourselves, if we're not really open to learning and really open to change, we look over it and almost trot over it. We don't care. We say, oh, I'm already doing that. But when you're truly introspective and concerned and want to actually fulfill something, that's what gives you that desire to learn. And that's why, in my belief, Jesus repeatedly in the Bible says, those who have ears to hear, let them hear.
Yeah.
Because that's why he speaks in parables. He speaks so plainly. And those who are ready and willing to apply what he's teaching will hear it. And that, like when we're standing before Pilate again, we're going through a lot of Easter stuff this week.
Yeah.
And so I just read the whole rendition of Pilate, interviewing Jesus pretty much. And Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. My kingdom is pretty much the kingdom of truth. And those who hear my voice, listen, because I am truth. And I think that's that same thing when you realize whether it's business, whether it's family, realize, whether it's religion, the truth is always there for us to hear, but we have to be willing to hear it.
That's good.
That's awesome.
One of the things, we talked about earlier with Teddy Roosevelt is, just that there's successes, there's failures. It's rarely a linear line of experience for an entrepreneur, right? If you zoom in, every day, every second, it's kind of up and down like the stock market. We talk about that at the times, but hopefully, just in our walk in faith, right? That's kind of the same way in journey. And hopefully you're continuing to climb, level up on your own journey, to make your company or companies autonomous. What did you run into that you weren't expecting? Some of those roadblocks that you had to overcome on your personal journey?
I think probably the biggest things that I ran into was, again, it's all about my behavior towards people. And so the biggest thing that I would run into is I would hire somebody and I expected to tell them this is your job and assignment. And I would hire them because I wanted them to fulfill something. The biggest thing that was different for me was one of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs is pretty much, I'm going to paraphrase it just for simplicity's sake, but he says, I hire people to teach me. I hire people who are smarter than me because that's why I want them on my team. And so that was a big thing to make your business truly autonomous. Again, you have to treat people as independent thinkers. And so if you hire people that think for themselves already and you're anticipating to be smarter than you in these certain areas that you're hiring them for, that is a great behavior. And that was, for me, something that I did not like because to be honest, I was a pretty micromanaging kind of individual. I was a very control freak. I said, this is my business. I'm very passionate about my business. This is why I'm doing my business. This is where I'm going with my business. And to kind of almost let go of the reins a little bit was extremely difficult. And to say, you're smarter than me. I'm not saying to bend over backwards and let people just push you around. That's not what I'm saying. But have the approach to hiring to say, I want somebody who's smarter than me in this category. And we all kind of do that, but I think to really make that the top priority.
That's absolutely fantastic. That was a fast half an hour, wasn't it?
It was.
That just flew by. That's what happens every time I talk to you. It's like you have so much information to share. It's so fantastic. I love your journey. I love what you've created. Talk to us about the book. What is the book? How does the book help the entrepreneur? Where is it available? How should they read the book? Share a little bit about that with us.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you for asking. So the book is called The Autonomous Organization, and obviously it's written by me. So the author's Philip Bredsguard. You can find it on Amazon.com. It's available audiobook for those who prefer that. The book itself is written to be a guide for happiness and success within any organization or community. That's the premise. It teaches you chapter by chapter the fundamental building blocks of how to create an organization from the ground up to be, like we've said, autonomous. And autonomous has three categories to it: the metaphysical aspect of it, the temporal aspect of it, as well as the governance aspect of it. Again, these are weird words. The metaphysical, what I mean by that is it teaches you how to create an organization where people want to be there. They're inspired to be there. Not only your employees, but the people who shop from you. If you're a business, they come to you because they're inspired to you. You don't have to manipulate them. You're not out there throwing promotions. You don't have a buy one get one. You're not saying, oh, here's a $10,000 sign-on bonus if you get the job or whatever. Autonomous organizations don't need to do that because people almost beg to be a part of their companies. And so the book teaches you how to do that as far as the actual employees of the business, as well as the business. Autonomous organizations are autonomous and self-reliant in the market. They don't have competition. They separate themselves from all of the businesses. So that's the first thing it teaches. The second thing it teaches is how to have an autonomous business temporally. And what I mean by that is financially, the physical aspect of the business. Autonomous organizations can go 6 to 12 months without a single penny in revenue. If COVID-19 happened tomorrow and your business couldn't accept any more revenue, it was just put on pause, for example, and you still had to pay all your bills, you had to pay all your salaries, you had to fulfill all financial obligations for the next 6 months, and you're not allowed to even sell one thing. Like, an autonomous organization can survive that. And they won't even struggle. They won't even get into
You're blowing
debt.
people's minds right now.
That is the standard that people need to have, because if you cannot do that, if your business is reliant on cash flow, if your cash flow stops, then your business can't survive. You see that with Toys R Us, Sears. You see that in COVID-19. Some of the biggest companies in the world declared bankruptcy in a matter of 2 weeks because they had to shut down for 2 silly weeks. To me, that is absolutely pathetic. And that is unhealthy. If your body, you should be able to survive for longer times of that. That means you're reliant on your economy, which, as we see today, is going up and down. Who knows where it's going? No one knows really where it's going to go. But you should be able to survive for these time periods. So that's the second aspect. The third aspect is, again, governance-wise. A self-reliant business, an autonomous organization, is not reliant on anyone or anything to exist. Not the government, not society, not anything like that. It's only reliant on itself. And that means even from its business owner. Again, a way to think of you're a business is if you're the business owner yourself, if I can't leave for 3 months tomorrow, if I find I have cancer tonight and I just need to take a 3-month sabbatical and I don't even talk to anybody or anything like that, and my business won't survive without me, and if not thrive without me, then it's not autonomous. That was the standard my entrepreneurial mentors gave me. And by the time I was 18 years old, I actually had the opportunity to go serve a mission for the church that I like to attend. I left for 2 years. I didn't have communication at all with my entire company for 2 years. I didn't email, nothing, not a phone call, nothing. And I came home to a successful business because I had followed the principles that I learned from my books and from my mentors. And that is a standard to have a truly autonomous organization, because if you think of the Ben Franklins in the world, an entrepreneur has priorities, they have responsibilities to a society that is more than just selling products. Ben Franklin could leave for years at a time and his business would thrive without him. That's how he was able to go to Britain and to be this delegate, if you will. That's why he was able to go to conferences up in he was able to do so much with his life because his business was autonomous.
You inspire me, man. I mean, I'm just going to tell you that right now. That's absolutely fantabulous. 18 years old, you're running an autonomous business. To the thousands of entrepreneurs who will listen to this show, the deal is everybody wants what you're talking about. I mean, this is the dream, I think, of everybody. You've laid it out. And to be honest with you, in reading your book, I'm a believer. I don't want to say I've drank the Kool-Aid because I don't know that that's the right way to phrase that, but I love it, man. I love what you've put out there. I love what you have. We're bringing this thing in for a landing. You are also a consultant. So you have a consultancy, you work with entrepreneurs and help them apply these principles of autonomous organizations and many others through your consultancy, I'm sure. Talk to us a little bit about that. Why should somebody join? How can they find you? What do you offer? How do you make their life better? So on and so forth. And we will wrap this bad boy up with that pretty bow.
So the reason I started that company, that's the one that's pronounced Æstus. So the Æstus is just Latin. It's a Latin word for the surge of a tide, on natural growth, if you mention things ebb and flow, if you will. That's why we named it that. And pretty much, if anybody wants to look up our website, it's Æstus, which is AESTUS.US. So Æstus.us. You're probably going to have to pause and rewind to get that back up. But pretty much the reason we started that company is because I started teaching these principles and people were asking me to teach them on how to do this. And so that's the principal reason I wrote this book, because I don't have time to help everybody do this. And so I wanted a nice, simple one book that can get people started. It's not an end all be all. So I would first recommend going to the book. Second of all, if you're still interested and have some questions on how to actually apply this to your business, you're welcome to reach out to our company. We're pretty selective about who we work with and why we work with people and things like that, but you're welcome to have a 30-minute meeting with us, and we can see if we're a good fit for each other, because business consulting is very intimate. It's very personal. In my brain, it's almost as personal as and intimate as a marriage itself, because you might like what people stand for, you might have similar values or whatever, but then if your personalities don't click, it's just not right. And so if you feel that inclined to reach out to us on Æstus, Æstus.us, feel free to do so. And if it's water flowing downhill for you and for us, we'll be happy to chat more.
Awesome. And where can the book be found?
Amazon is the primary location for it, or Audible. As you can, again, it's just look up the Autonomous Organization. I'm sure it'll be the only book that pops up with that title.
Awesome. And Todd, any final thoughts?
I mean, obviously, there's so many. I got 2 pages of notes here, but I mean, just in the spirit of Holy Week and what's going on, I think it's amazing, man. I mean, the one thing I think of is sacrifice is going to equal the freedom, and just the power of that in entrepreneurship, the power of that in life. And so, great call overall, man. A lot of good nuggets, and I know our audience feels the same way. So, just great overall. Thank you.
Philip,
thank you for having me.
Any final thoughts for our guests?
Just in spirit of Holy Week, I would just say, don't be afraid to sacrifice a little bit, and don't be afraid to have a little bit of faith. I think that, again, and in my opinion, in my studies of Jesus Christ's life, his life was exemplary of faith and sacrifice, of endless belief. And I think that is one thing that does separate the American entrepreneur from all other entrepreneurs. When my wife and I lived in Italy for a while, some gentleman came up to me and he told me, that's what you Americans are so unique. You'll start a business and you'll fail, and you'll start another business and you'll fail. You start another business and you'll fail. And this is just his recounting of it. So I'm not determining my judgment on Italy, but he said in Italy and in Europe as a whole, we start a business once, we get brave, and then we fail and we stop. We don't try ever again. And it says, you Americans are so unique, and that you keep going. And I think that is one thing that I think you should always remember, just to keep pushing, keep trying. If you don't know enough, which is probably true for each and every one of us, then keep learning. Read the book, read other books. My book is not an end all be all. Let's listen to this podcast. I've enjoyed listening to you guys' podcast since I've learned about it. You guys cover some great content. And I think just that hunger, that drive to learn and being willing to sacrifice to achieve that is optimal. And if I could just say one more thing for about 1 minute here, I would say, understand the priorities as well. My favorite saying that my mentors taught me is, no success in life can compensate for failure within your own home. If you want to know how to succeed and create a truly autonomous organization without sacrificing your family as well into that, I'd beg of you to read my book, because I read too many books, and it happened to me, where I prioritize my business over my family. And I tell you, from right now, from an eternal perspective, 5,000 years from now, I believe each soul is eternal. 5,000 years from now, you will regret putting your business above your family. That is not to say not to be a success, but in a case like Thomas Edison, here's someone who succeeded and provided so much value to the world, but his personal life was an absolute shamble. Multiple divorces, no relationships with his kids. To me, that is not worth the sacrifice. Now, that I want entrepreneurs and I want people to succeed, but please do it the right way.
I love that. I can't say it any better, so I'm not going to try to. You've absolutely crushed it on this show. Business over family is not the way to go. That's actually an entirely different podcast. We need to do that show. That's a fantastic show. I agree 100%. This has been absolutely incredible. If you would like to get a hold of Philip, you know how. He's given the information. Reach out. Get his book. Absolutely incredible. Autonomous organizations. Awesome stuff. Thank you so much for being on the show. Listen, we are here every week, 9:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Tuesdays. If you like this, follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, anywhere where it's social. I'm hanging out. Drop your comments in the comment box. Give us a like. Give us a share. Philip, thank you so much. You've blessed us this morning. Have a great Holy Week. Give God the glory in everything you do, and have an absolutely wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Introducing the all-new Western Enforcer V-Plow. Engineered with all the features, efficiency, and performance of full-size Western V-Plows, built specifically for your half-ton truck. For more information, visit westernplows.com.
Mike Bott from Frost Solutions, one of the owners of the company. What we do is provide a mini weather station to give you a tailored forecast to those particular locations, so you know where and when and what to do in those parts of town. You know there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that people can experience tremendous value having a technology like this.